Pleasure and delight to be here with Rabbi Alex Israel, who works at the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies, serving as the Director of Community Education and the summer program. If you've never visited Pardes, it's a wonderful learning institution to check out. And also at Yeshivat Eretz Hatzvi, which is primarily post-high school, right? Wonderful learning institution. And he's the author of a terrific book, Kings 1, or One Kings, Torn in Two, which is going to be the point of conversation tonight. And we're excited that the second book of Kings is emerging soon. What, next year?
Please God, yeah, in about a year's time.
Okay, wonderful. So on this topic, Torn in Two, you describe the rupture of the Israelite kingdom after Solomon. And we're clearly a very divisive and factious people. Why do you think we have a tendency to separate ourselves and to split ourselves apart, like we have historically?
Okay, so this is a really great question. And what I'm thinking is like this. A lot of people think that we just argue for nothing. I think they probably get that because they've been to synagogue and they know exactly, how Jews act when we're together. But I think it's much deeper than that. In the book of Kings, what we have is we have a split. It happens over a sort of insignificant topic. It happens over taxation, or maybe that's very significant, but it happens over taxation. But how does it split? There are these old ethnic divisions in our people. We have the northern tribes, we call them Yisrael, but really, and then we have the southern tribes, Yehuda. And this goes back to a split between Judah and Joseph. Now you'll say to me, why Judah and Joseph? What's Judah and Joseph? But I think it's significant because Judah is the Bechor, he is the firstborn of Leah. Joseph is the firstborn of Rachel. And now we get back into, I think most people who have read the Bible, most people who have read Sefer Bereshit, know about these two wives and the tremendous rivalry that was between their wives. These two wives of Jacob, two sisters who were so different to each other. One very romantic, beautiful, one who is very, very different, who has loads of children, the majority of the family, and there's tension. There's tension between them, there's tension between their children. And these things don't go away. First of all, let me maybe put it differently. We'll talk more about it in a minute, but first of all, I believe that Rachel and Leah were very different people, but they passed on a great sense of mission and leadership to their children. So I'll give you a few examples. Not only do you have the two major figures in Bereshit of the sons of Jacob are either Yosef on the one hand, we have the huge story of Yosef, right, and Yehuda, right? Yosef and Yehuda are the only two brothers who we know who they married, the names of their wives, who their children are and why their children are called what they are, right? And the only ones who we really have any biographical details. Okay, so Joseph and Judah are these major columns in the Jewish people. If you think about the wilderness years, two people survived the generation of the wilderness and went into the lands of Israel. Okay, Joshua from Ephraim, a Joseph figure, Kalev, a Judah figure. These are the two leaders. And these become energies, right? Not so much Joseph, but you have the first king, King Saul, a Rachel figure, right? And then you have he's usurped by the King David family. These are two leadership energies, right? I think we ask the question, why do we tend to pull apart? Because we do have very deep identities which are sometimes different. Sometimes in Israel today, I think actually Ashkenazim and Sephardim get on very well in Israel. Most people work in an office where they're working with Ashkenazi and Sephardi. They go to the army, Ashkenazi and Sephardi. And yet, somehow, every single election, there are certain politicians who try and drive a wedge between Ashkenazi and Sephardi. Why? Because these are deeply felt identities. And if you offend one of them, you're offending something very deep. You're offending me and my parents and my forebears and everyone else. Same thing. People in ancient Israel were very aware of this identity. I am a Judite, or maybe a Jew. I am an Ephraimite, or I am from the tribe of Joseph. And therefore, whenever there was tension, it's very easy to become unraveled on these lines. I think I think we would do well to acknowledge these differences, but then I think we've also got to work hard to make sure that in moments of pressure, it's true about anything, right? Even a very happily married couple know that there are pressure points and tensions where in moments of a lot of major tension, things can come undone on those pressure points. So we're a family. We have those things. We have those things. We have these deep roots, and we have to be very aware of them to make sure that we don't come unraveled. I don't want people talk about Jewish unity, and it becomes such a cliche, but it's something you've got to work hard to make happen.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. I think of the Gemara that why were the Jews given Torah at Sinai? And at least one answer is that they were Oz, that they were kind of strong-willed people, right? That was actually an important characteristic for receiving Torah, and part of that could be that some view machloket, disagreement in the Talmudic sense, as a problem. We had truth, we lost it, and so now we're trying to argue because we don't know what's true. But others, of course, in a dialectical sense, in either Hegelian philosophical sense or in a brisker sense, understand that machloket and disagreement can produce higher truths. So I think that diversity is not necessarily a problem if we can learn that coexistence. So let me ask you. So we want to be one family. We want to be one people, and it really is a question: are we still one people? But what do you think the solution is? What do you think the solution is to really come back together?
So I want to talk about the solution in a sort of, I don't know, maybe I should call it a philosophical sense, in a sort of higher sense, and maybe we can talk about more practical solutions in a few minutes.
Yeah, good.
I hope we've got enough time, but I'll try and give a couple of different. I think one thing is to acknowledge our differences. We were talking just a couple of minutes ago about Rosh Steinsaltz, and he should have a refuah shlema. And he wrote an amazing piece about Rachel and Leah. And he said that Rachel is this sort of romantic character. She has this great love with Jacob, but it's a love which is unfulfilled because the minute she gets into the marriage, Leah's already there. Rachel wants to have children, and she has a child, and she calls him Yosef, which means Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Please give me another child. In other words, she's never satisfied, and at the moment when she gets that other child, she gets Benjamin, that's the moment when she dies. Rachel's interesting because she is a character who has so much hope, so much romance, but it fizzles out somehow. Leah, I think that's what I can call Leah. It's interesting in the Kabbalah, Leah is the higher of the two. Leah is the one who's buried with Yaakov. Right? There's a wonderful medrash in Bereshit Rabbah which says, Shem ha-gedolah Leah, gedolah b'matnoteha, great in her contributions. She was the one who gave the malchut, the monarchy. She's the one who gave the kuna. Her son Levi becomes the Kohen. B'shem ha-ktana Rachel, ledorot, only temporary. Right? Shaul, sorry, not ledorot, l'sha'ah. Right? Shaul l'sha'ah. Right? In other words, temporary. What's going on with Rachel and Leah? Leah's the Eim Habanim Smecha. She doesn't find her way into Jacob's life through loads of romance. She finds it by plodding along and sort of like, I always say, it's like in Fiddler on the Roof, where she goes, do you love me? And he goes, I don't know, for 25 years I've washed your clothes, I've raised your kids. That's a Leah love, right? She's always there, she's there with the kids and whatever it is. Okay, how does that translate? All of the Rachel characters have startup energy. The Rachel characters are up and down. Like Joseph, up, popular, and then in the pit. We remember more. Also, sometimes very, 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 very appealing. Mordechai with his clothes. So he's either got royal clothes on or he's got clothes of mourning on. Right, up and down. King Saul, very beautiful and attractive. Up and then he's right down. He's a Rachel character. But you know what? The rabbis talk about, in order to bring the redemption, you need a Mashiach ben Yosef and a Mashiach ben David. In other words, who's Mashiach ben Yosef? They say the Messiah of Yosef is to be for the Chevlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of the Messiah. That's to get over those hurdles. It's like as I said, a startup. You have an entrepreneur, he's got brilliant ideas, right? He creates a company, it does really well, and then the idea is over, and then what do? You need to bring somebody in to bring the company into stability and profitability.
Mm-hmm.
That's the David characters. David characters take us. What I'm saying is, it's not just that, this part of the family don't get on with that part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
These energies rub against each other, right? These energies rub against each other. And I think what we have to do is learn that in order to reach redemption, we need a Rachel and a Leah. We can't do it without both. We can't do it without both. If I can, I'll give you another model.
Great.
I'll give you another model. Yeah. That was Rav Steinsaltz.
Right, okay.
Rav Kook, Rav Avram Yitzchak Cohen Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, an amazing mystic.
Pre-state Israel. Yeah.
Pre-state Israel, that's true. Thank you.
Amazing.
He gave a speech which was incredibly controversial. He got in a lot of trouble for giving a speech. It was a eulogy for Herzl. 1904, he gets up in Tel Aviv and says, "I'm going to eulogize Herzl." Everybody said, "But Herzl, he's secular. You are an Eastern European rabbi." And he spoke.
This was well after his passing, I presume.
Yeah, a little bit afterwards.
Okay.
And he spoke about Joseph and Judah. He said it like this: Joseph is there's a medrash that Joseph spoke 70 languages. Joseph is the mashbir. He is the economist, right? Joseph is like the universal, right? He knows how to run economies. He knows how to work with kings. He's on the international stage. Judah, he says, Haita Yehuda lekodsho. Judah represents the holiness. Judah, his name is Yehuda. If you take out a Dalet, it's Yud Hey Vav Hey. It's God's name. Right? I have a son called Yehuda. He used to come back from kindergarten writing his name in Hebrew, and he used to sometimes miss out the Dalet. I said, my son is, right, signing his name as God.
Right.
Haita Yehuda lekodsho. He says like this. Rav Kook says there is just like you can't have a soul without a body. You can't have everybody was saying Judaism, it's all about Judaism. He said, no, we need to recognize that secular Zionism is the Yosef. We need to have an economy like every other country, a diplomatic corps, a foreign service, a whatever it might be. We need a country. That's the Joseph. By the way, that's universal. That's international. In that regard, we're no different from every other country on the face of the globe. We share that. But we want to lead to higher values. Those higher values are Judaism, right? Those higher values are the Yehuda. And he says both sides, and what he was really calling was for the religious community to recognize that Zionism is a Jewish idea, and that to acknowledge that Zionism was something which they should embrace. And by the way, the other way is true as well. Secular Zionism had a very hard time with the Jewish aspect. I hope that we've moved on 110 years later, where I think a lot of Israelis, even secular Israelis, are much more relaxed about the place of religion, unless it's with coercion, I have to say. And Israelis do not like coercion of any sort, but they understand the need for the spiritual. And I think there are many people in the religious community, not enough to my mind, who need to recognize the importance of having a country and what it's given the Jewish people. Now, that sort of thing is just an example where we have to appreciate there's a space for both. We have to look at the other, and instead of condemning the other because they're different to us, we have to ask, what are their strengths? What do they bring to the Jewish people? Each sector, each group, each denomination, each whatever it is, brings something on board. And that is, you start off by saying, we have so many divisions. We do have divisions, but we can argue till kingdom come. We've done it really well. We say the second temple was destroyed because of sinat chinam, because of hatred. My rabbi used to say, we say sinat chinam, hatred for no reason. He says, we've got loads of reasons to hate. It's not chinam.
You got your head to
we got. But if you want to argue, so we'll break the house apart. But if we want to have a house, if we want to have a house of Israel, we have to look at the other and say, what do you bring? And I want to say, thank you, right? You bring that. That's a really important contribution. And what do you bring? Oh, you bring an important contribution. Okay. And all to look at the other and say, wow,
Well, so one of the challenges there is that, like, for example, you live in the Gush Etzion, in Alon Shvut, and that's predominantly a religious community. And in there are some mixed communities, but people tend to live among their factions. Right? The political sphere is quite divisive. I mean, the army is quite a melting pot. And then there's the workplace. But what is the sphere where we can actually appreciate one another? Is it in the realm of literature, but just on a societal level, right? Where could that appreciation kind of emerge from?
Right. First of all, I think what you're saying, the point you're making, I think is a really important one. I have personally been doing a certain cheshbon nefesh about whether I love Alon Shvud. It's a wonderful place to live, but I keep on asking myself whether maybe that is an era gone by, and that I should move to somewhere which is a more integrated and diverse community, because I feel that this actually is a source. I think it's a mistake. You see housing projects being sold in Israel, and they're being sold to, this is for the religious, this is for the secular, this is for the ultra-Orthodox, and I can't help feeling that if there was a greater interaction between different groups, we might be better off. Having said that, I do think I am part of a few initiatives, and I see more and more initiatives in Israel, which are trying to make strides in order to get people to meet.
Okay, so let me ask you about this. So just before you go there, from an outside perspective, it looks like everything's a mess. It looks like there's machloket, there's argument, and it's going to be a civil war. And do you share this view that Israel's really a place of deep conflict between Jews? And if so, how would we sort of kind of resolve that rift?
Right. Look, if you look at the, when you see the pictures of the women of the wall, when sometimes you hear about some of the religious legislation or whatever it might be, it does look like a place where, we're tearing each other apart.
Yeah.
I think on a regular basis, it is quite amazing. You mentioned the army, but it starts there. I think it happens in the workplace. So there is so much day-to-day interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is like, oh, I can't stand that group except the people I know.
Right.
And so sometimes I think the real flaw is the politicians. The politicians use these things as tools to get votes.
Yeah.
And you're just experiencing the recent election. And you can really drive a wedge. And by the way, it's not just virtual; it's real. People really feel it.
Yeah.
So, except the people I know who are so nice, right? So one thing is to realize that is true. There are loads and loads of initiatives whereby people are coming into contact with other groups. First of all, one place where I do this on a regular basis is Pardes. Pardes is a non-denominational learning institute where we bring people, and there are people there who are Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, unaffiliated, and we just tell people, come and study the Torah, just come with a lot of love, and we try and create the largest possible denominator, and I think it works to create a very beautiful environment. Sometimes I really do think it's a sort of Gan Eden environment in that regard.
Right.
I love certain initiatives, and I think they should be models.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll name a couple, but one organization I'm involved with is Sohar, which was set up after the Rabin assassination, like a time when really we felt society was ripping apart. And it was a group of Orthodox rabbis who said, secular Israelis get married. They don't even have a communal rabbi for the synagogue they don't go to. They just don't know any rabbi. Let's help people through the marriage process. And again, it's not rocket science. It's really simple. We're going to perform the ceremony, but we make sure we help. We make sure we really get to know the bride and groom, and we build a relationship. And it becomes a real moment of warmth, a moment of meeting, a moment of friendship. Breaks down barriers. A project I'm not involved with, but which is unbelievable. Organization that I've been reading about and following on Facebook called B'li Bachoma. The famous song Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, which is like an anthem, talks about a wall in the middle of Jerusalem, because there really was a wall between 1948 and 1967. This organization took that phrase and said, wait, there's a different type of wall. There's a virtual wall. The ultra-Orthodox, the secular in Jerusalem don't meet. So here's something really interesting. A hidden secret in Israeli society is that ultra-Orthodox actually really want to get into the workforce. They really want to get a secular education. And this organization sort of realized that. And they said, here, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a chavruta, a study pair, between a secular student at the Hebrew University and a Haredi person. The Hebrew University student is going to teach the Haredi English and maths. The Haredi is going to learn Torah with the secular, right?
Right.
And they're going to argue about it.
Right.
And there are more than 1,000 of these learning
That's
things
amazing.
that have happened until now.
Wow.
And they form, I mean, of course, if you're studying like this,
Right.
they spend half an hour learning English math, half an hour learning Torah.
Right.
And each one brings what they've got.
Right.
And they have, and I'm sure they argue about the Torah. I hope they don't argue about the math and English.
Right.
But they're forming friendships.
Yeah.
I was at another organization. I threw out all these organizations.
Great. Yeah.
There's an organization I went to the founding conference of it a couple of years ago, about 18 months ago. It's called Shacharit.
That's the one I couldn't think of the name a moment ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Shacharit. They say, President Rivlin turned around and said, now there are 4 tribes of Israel. 25% of the country soon will be ultra-Orthodox.
Right.
25% Arab. 25% Dati.
Yes.
25% secular. Okay, great. So now that's what it is. Are we going to form one society? They took this on board. Yeah. They said, let's talk. I went to a breakout group where they had personalities, the leaders of the Aguda L'Zkuyot Ezrach, the human rights organization of Israel, who were in a year-long dialogue with the heads of the Sephardi Haredi, the Shas Ma'ayan HaChinuch HaTorani. The Shas, these are ultra-Orthodox Sephardi school movement, which has thousands of students. They've been talking to each other. 6-hour-long meetings over the course of a year. Just the dialogue is special. But what was amazing was what they both said. They said, what did you learn from each other? The ultra-Orthodox said, you know what? We hear all about all these civil rights. Yeah. And suddenly we realize how much of that civil rights is in Judaism. Do you know what we did? We've changed our curriculum for grade 7 and grade 8. And now we have a whole unit, a month-long unit each year on the other. How to treat somebody different than myself. He said, we have so many laws and so many traditions about welcoming the stranger and what happened to it. Let's talk about it, but let's give it a label. You gave us that label. The people who are involved in human rights said, we realized that whenever we talk, we are such a turn-off to people who aren't in our little bubble. We talk about human rights and everybody just hears, blah, 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 left wing, left wing, left wing. We have to change our language and talk in the language of other communities, or else we're not going to get our message through. And when we do change our language, people are receptive. That's what I call dialogue, right? And more we have to find ways in which these dialogues happen. And I think they are happening. I think, you're seeing it, I don't know, the last single that Shlomo Artzi put out was Shlomo Artzi together with a religious singer called Yishai Ribo singing a song about how they can get along. We're different. But they say, we've got Echad Eloheinu, we've got one God. Watch the video on YouTube. And I do think that I look at it and I say, don't focus on the women of the wall. I mean, you can focus on it if you want to try and solve the problem, but don't focus on all of those things, because actually, as many of those problematic things and more that are going on, there are really positive things. And the more we focus on that and we grow them, I think we will be in a much better place.
Wonderful. So we learn how divisive our history has been, and yet have a great source of optimism, of wonderful models, both ancient and modern and contemporary, that shed light on how we can move forward.
I'd add that I think it's such, we look at the state of Israel as a gift for the Jewish people. And we've gone through exile more than once. And I think we've got to see it as our really important mission, that we don't blow it. We don't blow it. This is a gift. We have to nurture it. We have to build it together.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. Check out Rabbi Alex Israel's writings on VBM. That's the virtual Beit Midrash, not Valley Beit Midrash, but also now on Valley Beit Midrash.
Also on my website, alexisrael.org.
Good. alexisrael.org. And he's the only one who's now on both VBM websites, to my understanding. And again, check out Pardes, Yeshivat Eretz Tzvi, his book, One Kings, Torn in Two, and God willing, this coming year, his second book on Malachim, on the Book of Kings. Rabbi Israel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to be together with you.